It was a rainy evening when a young woman, still dressed in a wedding gown, stood alone at a quiet bus stop, her makeup smeared, her eyes filled with heartbreak. Strangers passed by, some glancing, others pretending not to see. No one stopped until a humble mechanic named Ravi did. Covered in grease, tired from a long day at the garage, Ravi noticed something wasn't right. He didn't ask many questions, just offered his umbrella and a warm cup of tea from a nearby stall. What happened next would leave the entire neighborhood stunned. Ravi didn't know her story yet, but he could tell she had no place to go. And despite barely making ends meet himself, he brought her into his tiny rented room, offering safety without judgment. The girl, who we later learn is named Mira, had just been rejected at the altar, left humiliated and abandoned by the man she thought loved her. But this mechanic, someone society often overlooks, shows kindness over convenience. As word spread about the unusual pair, people began to talk. Some praised him, others questioned his intentions. But Ravi stayed silent, focused on helping Mira rebuild her shattered world. Then, just when things started to look up, something happened that no one saw coming, and it changed everything. Mira didn't speak much during the first few days. She stayed quiet, helping with small chores around Ravi's room, her eyes always distant. Ravi didn't push. He just made sure she had food, a place to sleep, and a bit of peace. Slowly, pieces of her story started to come out. Her wedding had been arranged by her family. Everything seemed perfect until the groom vanished hours before the ceremony. No calls, no messages, just gone. Her relatives blamed her, called her bad luck, and refused to take her back in. With nowhere to turn, she ended up at that bus stop, until Ravi found her. Ravi, on the other hand, had his own past. Orphaned at a young age, he had grown up fixing cars and patching tires. He knew what it felt like to be alone, to be judged without reason. That's why helping Mira wasn't a favor. It was something he felt he had to do. But not everyone saw it that way. His landlord started asking questions. Neighbors whispered. A few even accused Mira of being trouble, someone hiding something. Still, the two carried on, slowly building a strange but quiet trust. But late one night, as Ravi returned from work, he noticed something unusual near the doorstep. A small envelope, sealed tight, with no name. What was inside would flip their world upside down. Ravi picked up the envelope cautiously, his fingers trembling. There was no return address, no markings to indicate who it was from. He stared at it for a moment, his instincts telling him it wasn't a letter of good news. As he opened the envelope, a photograph slid out, along with a piece of paper. The photo was of Mira, but not the Mira he had come to know. This one was dressed in the same wedding gown, but her eyes were wide with fear, and behind her stood a man Ravi didn't recognize. Tall, dark-haired, with a cold expression. The piece of paper had a single line scrawled across it. Asterisk, stay away from her, or you'll regret it. Asterisk. Ravi felt his stomach drop. Who was this man? Why would he send something like this? And most importantly, why was Mira involved in something so dangerous? Ravi couldn't shake the thought that he had unknowingly stepped into something much larger than a simple act of kindness. The next day, Mira seemed different. Her eyes, once full of sorrow, were now clouded with something darker. She kept her distance, avoiding any real conversation. Ravi knew she was hiding something, but every time he tried to ask, she shut down. It hurt him to see her like this, especially after everything he had done for her. Meanwhile, the whispers in the neighborhood grew louder. Some said Ravi was being taken advantage of, that Mira was trouble. A few local men started eyeing her, suspicious and hostile, but Ravi ignored them. He didn't care what others thought. But then, one evening, as Ravi was walking back to his room, he noticed something that made his heart race. A man in a dark jacket standing outside the building watching. It wasn't the first time he'd seen him. This time, the man wasn't hiding. He was waiting. But for what? Ravi's heart raced as he watched the man in the dark jacket. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. He tried to stay calm, but the more he watched, the more he realized this wasn't just a coincidence. The man had been there before, lurking around the alleyway at odd hours, but today he was standing at the front door, his eyes fixed on Ravi's apartment. Without thinking, Ravi turned and walked toward him, hoping to confront him, to get some answers. As he approached, the man straightened up, almost as if he was expecting him. Ravi didn't waste any time. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice sharp. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he demanded, his voice sharp. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a slow, deliberate step forward, his gaze never leaving Ravi. "Stay out of it," the man finally spoke, his voice low and threatening. "She's not who you think she is." Ravi's chest tightened. Who is she, then? The man's lips curled into a slight smirk, but he didn't respond. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder toward the entrance of the building, as if warning Ravi that others might be nearby. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Ravi standing in the middle of the street, his mind racing. When Ravi returned to his apartment, he found Mira sitting quietly in the corner of the room, her face pale. She hadn't heard him come in. It was as if she was lost in thought, but the look on her face was anything but peaceful. "Mira," Ravi said softly, approaching her. "Who was that man?" She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. Ravi knelt beside her, his heart aching for the pain she was clearly going through. "Please, you need to tell me," he urged. For the first time since he met her, Mira's eyes met his with a look of desperation. "I can't," she whispered. "I never wanted you to get involved. It's too dangerous." The weight of her words sank in, and Ravi felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He didn't know who or what he was up against, but the storm was closing in fast. And just when he thought he might finally understand what was happening, a loud bang echoed from the hallway outside, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps growing closer. Someone was coming. The door creaked open and Ravi froze. The footsteps stopped right outside, followed by a voice he hadn't expected to hear. "Mira, I know you're in there." The voice was sharp, demanding. It wasn't the man in the dark jacket. This voice was familiar, too familiar. Ravi's stomach dropped as he realized it was Mira's fiancé, the one who had left her at the altar. His name was Arjun, a man she had spoken of only briefly, with a mixture of sadness and anger. But now, hearing his voice in the hallway, everything shifted. If he was here, things had escalated beyond anything Ravi could have imagined. Ravi turned to Mira, his eyes searching hers for answers. She was pale, shaking now, the color drained from her face. I never told you the full story," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Arjun, he's not who he appears to be. He's dangerous. And what happened at the wedding wasn't just some cruel joke." Before Ravi could ask more, the door flung open with a loud bang, and Arjun stepped into the room, his eyes cold and furious. He was taller than Ravi remembered, his jaw clenched in anger. But there was something darker in his eyes, something that made Ravi's blood run cold. "You shouldn't have gotten involved, mechanic," Arjun sneered, his gaze flicking to Ravi. "This is bigger than you. You're in way over your head." Ravi took a step forward, standing protectively in front of Mira. "What do you want from her? What's going on?" Arjun's lips curled into a sinister smile. "She's part of something you can't even begin to understand. And now you're tangled in it too." He stepped closer, his tone lowering. "You think you've been kind, but you've just made yourself a target." The tension in the room thickened as Ravi tried to make sense of the situation. Who was Arjun working for? What did he mean by target? And why was Mira at the center of all this? Then, just as the silence grew unbearable, Arjun pulled out an envelope from his jacket and tossed it on the table between them. It was the same kind of envelope Ravi had found outside earlier, the one with the mysterious photograph. Arjun's eyes gleamed as Ravi stared at it. "You should have stayed away," Arjun muttered. But before Ravi could react, Arjun turned and left as quickly as he had come, slamming the door behind him. The room was left in a thick cloud of uncertainty. What did this all mean? And what was he about to walk into now? Ravi stood motionless, staring at the envelope Arjun had left behind. His heart pounded in his chest, a wave of confusion and anger crushing over him. Mira, still trembling in the corner, seemed smaller than ever, the weight of the truth crushing her. She didn't look at Ravi, but he could see the tears welling up in her eyes. She was afraid, terrified. For the first time, Ravi understood that this was not just about a broken heart or an abandoned wedding. It was about survival. He opened the envelope slowly, dreading what he might find. Inside, there was another photograph, but this one was even more chilling than the last. It was of Mira again, but this time she was not in a wedding gown. She was standing beside a man. Ravi felt his blood run cold. He could no longer deny it. Mira wasn't just some innocent victim. She was involved in something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. But why had she hidden it from him? And why had Arjun threatened him? Mira, now standing, looked at Ravi with a mixture of guilt and resignation. "I never wanted you to get involved. I tried to protect you, but it's too late now." Ravi felt a deep sense of betrayal, but there was something else in her eyes, something he couldn't ignore. Fear, genuine fear. Suddenly, the sound of sirens in the distance pierced the quiet. Mira's eyes widened. "They're coming," she whispered. "You need to leave now." Before Ravi could respond, the door burst open again, and Arjun entered, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 other men stepped in behind him, their eyes cold and calculating. The situation had escalated faster than Ravi could comprehend. Arjun had been playing a much deeper game. "You should have stayed out of this, Ravi," Arjun said, his tone icy. "But now it's too late for you. You don't know what you're up against." Ravi took a step forward, his fists clenched. "I won't let you hurt her." But then, in a shocking twist, Mira stepped between them, her voice steady. "No, Ravi, you don't understand. Arjun's right. I'm already too deep. I've been working for them all along." Ravi's world spun. "What?" he gasped. Mira's face was a mask of regret. "I was forced into it. They threatened my family, my life. I didn't have a choice." She looked at Arjun, who nodded slightly, as though confirming her words. "But I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep lying."